This is The Sports Life.
Step back jumper with a right hand, and the baseline by Queen is good. He is putting on a show tonight.
Ooh, that was
77-66.
Give it to Smith with 3. Dances to the center line with 2. Right wing heaves for the win. Misses it. Ball game over. Michigan survives. And this resilient bunch of Michigan Wolverines are in first place in the Big Ten.
And welcome into the Sports Life. Will teaming here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, Brian Boesch was one of those voices you heard as he called the final, as Michigan is indeed in first place in the Big Ten when it comes to men's basketball. And it's always good to hear from Johnny Holiday. Well, for our show this week, we have an interesting lineup of things. And one of them I think you're really going to enjoy is a conversation we had with Martin Jarmond. He's the athletic director at UCLA. And we're going to talk to him about how everything's going with the 4 new schools merging in. And since he spent over 15 years in the Big Ten between Michigan State and Ohio State, I think he would have a good handle on how it's going.
Should be a lot of great perspective and insight there from Martin Jarmond later on. But you brought up Brian Boesch, and we got to hear from him just a moment ago. We'll actually be joined by him in just a little bit to talk about the first place Michigan basketball team right now and where the Wolverines stack up. And also, we did this last year, but Michigan State professor Robert Kolt gets together and evaluates, judges the Super Bowl commercials with his constituents. And we're going to find out what they liked about Super Bowl 59's Super Bowl commercials.
Well, I'm guessing they like those better than the game.
That's I think everybody did.
Yeah. Well, what about the sounds of the week, Dalton?
For sounds of the week, let's start off with Michigan State, the come-from-behind win against Oregon at the Breslin Center. The place was rocking, and it was a bit historic on fronts because Tom Izzo tied Bob Knight for the all-time amount of wins as a Big Ten basketball coach, 353. And he did it with the 25-year reunion of that 2000 national championship team. One of his star players, Jason Richardson, was sitting behind him, and of course his son, Jace Richardson, does such a good job now for the Spartans. Mateen Cleaves in-house, and here's what Tom Izzo had to say afterwards.
Well, those guys sitting behind me did. You know, they made Tom Izzo. They made this program. You know, it wasn't just a one-year thing. They sustained something, three Final Fours in a row, 4 Big Ten championships. I mean, that's sustaining something. So I'm looking at them, and I'm watching Jace Richardson block that shot. And I turned to Jason and said, who the hell's Jason Richardson?
It was a big comeback for Michigan State in the second half, and they're talking about Jason Richardson. Well, his career high at Michigan State was 26 points. His son, Jace, got his first Spartan start in that game against Oregon. He had a career high of 29 points.
You think you show up to the dinner table and son's got to flex that on dad a little bit, right?
I would think so, just a touch.
Oh, it's good stuff. And we're talking about some of the great performances that the Big Ten has. One great performer right now, when you look at some of the individual metrics, just about one of the top in the country individual ratings right now goes to Trey Kaufman-Renn at Purdue. The season he's had at Purdue has been really a fabulous one for the Boilermakers, but he didn't make the midseason watch list for the great centers or power forwards. This left the Boilermakers a bit stunned, and Purdue head coach Matt Painter talked about how Trey Kaufman-Renn gets left off a list like this, with the sound coming courtesy of Boiler Pauly on Twitter.
No, it's like anything. Like if you're an English professor, you should be good at English, right? And so if you're selecting these teams, like with the best power forward, the best center, like last year, you know, Braden didn't make the top 10 point guards in the country, but then yet he made the top 5. So like there's an opportunity there when they make mistakes like they've made here. I don't know whether they're putting him on the Karl Malone or the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar award, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because they proved last year when they made that mistake with Braden, they can put him on that top 5. So I just expect that like you would think after they talked about the Karl Malone that happened 2 days ago, that now they would like reconvene and like kind of go through it. But there was 2 different point guard camps last year for the national, you know, where they invited 15 to 16 point guards in the country coming into college and been in college, and I couldn't get Braden Smith in either one of those. And I'm saying, hey man, I'm not saying he's a top 15 point guard in the country. I'm saying he's the best point guard in the country. I go like, you're leaving the best point guard out of the country. It's like having the NBA All-Star game and saying, hey, you know what? the 2 top guys that are going to be MVPs, you're not an all-star. It makes no sense. It just makes no sense. But you have non-basketball people making basketball decisions, and they look at it differently. Then they stereotypically look at somebody who's 5'11", like he's not a player, and he's real. He's one of the best passers ever. He can end up being the best passer ever. In terms of what he does and how he has accumulated assists throughout his career. But yeah, the same kind of holds true for Trey. What's he supposed to do? Right? He's the 5th or 6th most efficient player in college basketball right now. You can't make up the numbers that he has. But the thing that I don't grab is whether it's Braden or whether it's him, how they can't acknowledge it when you win big. If you have big time numbers and your team stinks, I got it. Or your team wins all the time and your numbers are very, modest. They both have big time numbers. And obviously Braden's not in that sphere anymore, right? But he is. And so I just don't understand when you win at a very, very high level and you have those numbers and you're productive and you're the 4th, 5th, 6th most efficient player in the country, whatever the damn stat is. But, to each their own. To each their own. That's on them, really. It's on them because they're showing that they don't understand the game and what matters.
Well, I don't think I can argue with one thing Matt Painter said. Not a single thing. I think he nailed it.
I hope these groups each year, though, just snub a Boilermaker because I've really started to enjoy the annual flamethrower that Matt Painter takes to every board that votes on these awards. If nothing else, it's at least entertaining to get his reaction, right?
Flamethrower. That's a good term.
Well, let's go to our last sound of the week this week. Michigan went down to Bloomington and played at Assembly Hall. And, of course, this was on the heels of the announcement that Mike Woodson, this would be the end of him as the head coach at Indiana this season. And there's a lot of talk, a lot of chatter. Hoosier fans really want Dusty May. They wanted him before. He, of course, spent his early ongoings as a manager at Indiana under Bob Knight. There's been a lot of talk about it. And Dusty May was asked about the potential of maybe becoming the next Hoosier head coach afterwards, with the sound coming courtesy of Fox.
I mean, first of all, it's flattering when you have the path that I had and have. I'm still on that same path. It's it makes you feel good because what's your competitive advantage as a student manager that transferred in as a marginal Division II player. And you just think back and it's man, you really, all I did was show up with great energy and passion for this game and helping people every day. And because of that, I think people always saw something or believed in me. And then you get to this point. But that stuff's crazy. I mean, I love being at Michigan. I love our team. We're fighting like crazy. That's it. I mean, this place is my foundation, but I'm very, very happy at the University of Michigan. Came here to win a game and mission accomplished.
Dusty May, the head basketball coach at the University of Michigan, and I think he's going to continue to be the head coach at the University of Michigan. Back with more of the Sports Life in just a moment.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little? But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
Every kid deserves a chance to feel safe, to have their own bed, to be loved and cared for. That's why I love my foster parents. They make me feel like part of the family.
Raise hope and foster dreams for one of 13,000 Michigan children in foster care. Visit michigan.gov/hope for a home or call 855-MICH-KIDS. That's 855-MICH-KIDS. Sponsored by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, Car Shield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call Car Shield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with Car Shield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Yay. My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back for more of The Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, if you were to go back and listen to and or read any preseason Big Ten men's basketball prediction, what you would not see or hear is somebody writing or mentioning Michigan being the team to catch in the Big Ten. Well, right now we're past the halfway point, and the longest winning streak in the conference at 5 is Michigan, and sitting on top of the standings, the Wolverines, 11-2 heading into the weekend, followed by Purdue 11-3, Michigan State 10-3, and rounding out the top 4, Wisconsin 9-4. And joining us to talk about this amazing run of events here is the voice of the Wolverines, Brian Boesch. And Brian, I just want to start off by talking about this 5-game winning streak. You went to Purdue on January 24th and got beat by 27. Something must have inspired somebody because you won 5 in a row, including beating Purdue.
Yeah, Will, Dalton, appreciate you guys having me on. Certainly that was the one game where Michigan had nothing going for it. It was over 2 minutes in, and Purdue led for 20 or more points for the last 29 minutes. And Dusty May said afterward, hey, this is a fork in the road. We need to get better. The scout is out that teams know that they can out-physical Michigan, and certainly Purdue did that to the nth degree on that night. And what's interesting is that I still don't think in these 5 games Michigan has put together really anywhere close to a full 40 minutes, which, you know, I hear that saying a lot. If we want to play a full 40 minutes, no one does. It's a game of runs. But Michigan hasn't been all that particularly close, yet they've been able to pull these off. And I know it's been stressful for fans. It's been perplexing for the staff to see a team that can surge out to such a big lead at times in the first half, let that slip away, and then still come back and win the ball game. I mean, Michigan had not trailed in the second half of its previous 3 games before the Purdue victory on Tuesday night. They just kept it close, but never let it get away. And it's been a fascinating watch because you don't just win games by 4 points or less 5 straight times by accident, but it also makes you wonder, okay, are these flaws that Michigan has, like every team has, are they going to show up? And they've just been able to shoo those away enough. And in particular against Purdue, Purdue did a lot of the same things. They had a lot of the same success. Their big 3 had a bunch of success. But Michigan made enough plays. They did enough down the stretch and got another thrilling victory. It's truly been a fascinating run and certainly a fun one for Michigan.
Oh, and it's interesting, Brian, because you talk about the kind of glass half full, the glass half empty, where you show concern, but also there's something to winning. And it kind of harkens me to what we just saw with the NFL, where the Kansas City Chiefs won all these games throughout the entire regular season. And you're like, is this really true? They get to the Super Bowl, then you're like, well, maybe we should have seen this coming. But it does feel like, Brian, to the point that if you're a team that finds ways to win close games, as the Wolverines have done in their last 5, that is a factor of, or an element of championship DNA, is it not?
It is. And I understand the analytical, the metric concern. Sure. I mean, Michigan isn't even a top 20 team on KenPom. I get it. Totally makes sense. A lot of that is the turnover issues, which Michigan was able to clean up pretty well against Purdue, one of their lowest performances of the season in that category, and it was necessary. But I think it also shows you that Michigan still has more in the tank. They're not maxing out and playing great basketball and finding ways to scratch and claw past Purdue or going on the road to Rutgers and Indiana, two very flawed teams, but two tough places to play and getting victories. What I think is optimistic about what Michigan has done is they've been able to win these games with different focal points, different heroes emerging in these spots. I mean, against Purdue, Trey Donaldson had a great start, and then he didn't play for a 6-minute stretch in the second half. Dusty May trusted a freshman in L.J. Kaysen, who hadn't played in the previous 3 games, to play 6 straight minutes. Reuben Jones had a few huge plays, and Dusty talks about his, quote, invisible plays, where he does something to help set up something else. Well, finally, we saw some of the things that he can do right there, not just in the flow of play, but also in the box score. And then Roddy Gale Jr., who will be the storyline coming up Sunday at Ohio State, he had his best game in weeks. He drove to the basket. He was, in a lot of ways, Michigan's offense at times when they were slogged, when they were slow, when Purdue was making things difficult. And he had one of his best defensive games of the season. Danny Wolf, Lad Golden, Trey Donaldson, the Michigan's closest thing to a big 3, they still got theirs, no doubt. But others, like the ones I mentioned, Amari Burnett had 3 huge threes in the second half. They've been able to find different ways to where, even if all the games have been close, the Wolverines haven't had everybody clicking in a game. They've had everybody contributing in games. But the ceiling of this team, I think, comes in the fact that, hey, 7-8 guys have gone and been the best player on the floor for a stretch. I don't think a lot of teams can say that. Certainly Purdue can't. Purdue's top 3 is amazing. It's probably the best in the country. But there's real questions about 4 through the end of the bench. For Michigan, I think there's confidence that several guys can go and be the player you need in a 5-minute stretch down the stretch to get a victory.
Well, Brian, everybody talks about your twin 7-footers, but how important is the long ball to this team? You're making over 9 a game.
Yeah, and they haven't really shot it at a very high percent as of late. So what I think Dusty May has implemented, that Michigan has ensured over and over and over, is that they're going to try to take better shots than their opposition. Michigan takes very few tough 2s, so non-dunks, non-layups, and non-threes. I mean, Michigan from 3 hasn't shot better than 33% in the last 4, and the only time here in the last, 4 weeks that they've shot better than 40%, they only made 9. So it wasn't a huge part of the game plan against Penn State in that game. So Michigan's going to find ways to get better shots than opponents. They've done it almost every game this season, and that a lot of times means threes. So that's another upside case for this team, is that they have not had – they had a streak earlier this year where they were really, really playing well from 3, and now it just hasn't quite been as successful. They have that ability to do it. They had a stretch earlier in the year where they hit 10 or more threes in 6 straight games. They've had 1 in the last 7. So there is an upside case there to be sure, but we all know the roll of the dice if you go to the 3-point lottery, because they're not guaranteed to go down. But Michigan has capability to do it, no doubt.
I do want to mention, Will brought up those twin towers inside of Wolf and Golden. When you look at Wolf, if there was a 5-tool player, like the baseball equivalent in basketball, Wolf would kind of be that. I mean, he's averaging 13 points a game. He's getting 10 rebounds a game. He's second on the team in assists with 86 this season. He leads the team in blocks with 38, and he's one of the top steal getters on this squad as well at 20 steals. He just has a way of rounding out every facet of this game.
I love the way you put that, Dalton. He is a five-tool player, and you can go beyond the box score with that. Just watch him play. He can post up in the paint. He rebounds at a pretty elite level. He can bring the ball into the floor. He can switch onto guards. He was defending Braden Smith in several instances down the stretch against Purdue on Tuesday night. So statistically, from just the flow of the game, who he is as a player, absolutely. And I think it's what's so interesting about this team and what will make the NCAA tournament very fascinating is that you can't simulate it. The Big Ten, I think, has always been one of the leagues that can better understand, deal with, try to slow down bigs. You get into an NCAA tournament situation where you haven't been watching this duo of 7-footers very often. It provides a really unique and oftentimes quick prep in the tournament for teams that just haven't seen it. And I don't know of many scout teams that have a bunch of 7-footers on it.
That's a good one, Brian. I think you might be right. That took some real research, didn't it?
Hey, that is the expertise you get with me, guys. I appreciate being on here over and over. And I mean, I'm not the best researcher in the country for nothing, right?
Yeah, but you got that one right. Well, you look at this.
Purdue always has a couple 7-footers hanging out on the bench. So Purdue's the one where they just Matt Painter finds them everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know how he does that. He must go to Google a lot. What's he Google? Big guy. See what pops up. So, what does Michigan have to do to keep the magic going?
I think there are several options, and that's what's neat about this. One of the things Dalton mentioned, they could hit more threes. They could hit a higher percentage of threes. That can get them some wins where things aren't working elsewhere, or if a team is having more success offensively than what most of the last two teams have had. Oregon certainly did at times. Penn State did at times. But, the Wolverines did a lot better job against Purdue. I thought their first half against Indiana was one of their best defensive performances of the season over a 20-minute stretch. So you have the three-point out. You have the fact that multiple guys can try to continue to feed. I think Damari Burnett might have had a re-breakout performance. He was shooting around 50% from three. And before that, 3-triple second half against Purdue, I think he was 8 of his previous 34. And he unlocks a lot for Michigan in a half-court sense. So maybe he can start to get going and find that December and January form. And I think defensively, this team has not necessarily been elite consistently, but they have been elite at times. And that's definitely really exciting. And one guy we have not mentioned a single time in all of this is Michigan's leading scorer. Vlad Golden has been someone Dusty May has said several times in the last couple of weeks that they've got to find a way to give him more post touches. So he's somebody who can go. I mean, he had a 36-point game this year. He had a 31-point game. He can go and have that takeover type of performance. So, will Michigan win out? No. The Big Ten's too tough for that. But are they just as likely to win by double digits as they are to lose some of these games? Absolutely. They've been on the right side of close games lately, and they will fall short in at least one game down the stretch just because that's how the Big Ten is. But they also have the ability to go and overwhelm you, whether it's home or road. I mean, they've been able to muster some pretty good performances in hostile environments. A win that's aged incredibly well at Wisconsin. That was Michigan's Big Ten opener before we really knew what this team looked like. They went to Madison and won a game where they shot 20-something% in the first half. So the malleability, the way that this team is able to kind of custom fit itself for the situation and the opponent is what is important in a league where you got a million teams like the Big Ten. And it's important come March when you're facing teams you haven't seen much of much or at all going into each game and short preps. So how, I'm not sure, but the fact they've got a lot of outs, that's what you want in poker, and that's what you want in basketball.
Well, as always, Brian, I appreciate you joining us, and it's good to know for Dalton and I, if we are looking for big guy research, we know where to go.
No doubt, guys. My commission isn't too high, so I'll give you a discount.
There you go. Talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Be well.
As always, a fun chat with Brian Boesch, the voice of the Wolverines, talking about Michigan's nice surge in the Big Ten basketball standings. Okay, up next, we're going to have a real fun conversation with Robert Kolt. We're going to talk about Super Bowl commercials right after this.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
That ought to do it. Totally energy efficient.
Oh no, not again. This time, we're getting help.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the battle of energy efficiency improvements. In this corner, Mr. I can save money and do it on my own. And in this corner, Miss Let's get it done right with some help. Fight!
Or you could just go to avoidenergydrama.com. From sealing your home to helpful loan options, you'll find all the tips and tools you need to stop wasting energy and stay comfortable. Avoidenergydrama.com. Brought to you by Michigan Saves.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see. Depression won't show up on an eye chart, and you can't measure it on your bathroom scale. Sorting out a mental health concern is not something to attempt on your own. You won't find a bipolar disorder by looking at a thermometer. Like many other health conditions, help for mental illness takes professional diagnosis and treatment. Anxiety won't just go away under a stick-on bandage. So the sooner you seek treatment, the better. If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. Find out what to do. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support. That's samhsa.gov/support.
And welcome back for more of The Sports Life. Will Team here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, for the 28th year, the faculty of the MSU College of Communication Arts and Sciences, well, they've been ranking ads during the Super Bowl. And joining us again for the Super Bowl postseason visit is Robert Kolt, Professor of Practice Emeritus in the MSU Department of Advertising and Public Relations, and the creator of this Ad Watch tradition. And Robert, thanks for joining us again. And I guess I just open up the questioning by asking you how you think this group of ads stacked up.
It was a good year for advertising. It was a better year for the ads than the game. We had a lot of fun and funny stuff. There were some serious ads, too, that made some good points and penetrated. But look, if you were like half the audience in America, and I understood the latest rating from Nielsen was 126 million people watching the game. Half that audience is watching for the ads because most people don't care about Philadelphia or Kansas City. In the rest of the world, there are some people who say, like my wife, Patrick Mahomes is cute. Okay, well, it doesn't mean anything about football. People are looking at the game for different things, and they know that the advertising in the game is the best advertising of the year. So we had a good night. The problem is the audience didn't stay around to the end of the game.
And that is a fascinating part and a byproduct, right, of a product that really was kind of lopsided from the get-go of the Super Bowl. And Will and I will get to some of our personal favorites and opinions from the Super Bowl ads. But, Robert, why don't you hit us with the focus group study, the board's evaluation of the top ads from this Super Bowl LIX?
Well, the Michigan State University professors in advertising and public relations have rated the Super Bowl ads for 28 years. And this year we picked the Michelob Ultra ad, which was the pickleball hustle. And William Defoe, Catherine O'Hara, it's just really funny. I've never played pickleball. Maybe you guys have. But it was just, the beer guys do great stuff. Mountain Dew did the artist Seal as a seal, which was great animation, and we loved it. WeatherTech did some crazy granny stuff. Then we had a really good Google Pixel ad, and then Novartis, the drug company, focused on breast cancer awareness, and the ad was called "Your Attention, Please," and they literally showed women's chests for a couple of minutes, but then delivered a good hard message. You know, it was a great year. We had Rocket Mortgage, Hellman's Mayo, Nike, Stella Artois, and Bud Light. All the beers do well. So those were our top ads in the game.
Well, you know what my top ad was, you ready? The one I really liked a lot. I really loved the Jeep owner manual. I really did.
Now, what is it that you loved about it?
Well, number one, I loved the message, okay? And I thought it was clever, especially at the end when Harrison Ford announced that he was a Ford, not a Jeep, even though he loved his Jeep. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was very clever.
Well, so Will, you identified which could be the only iconic ad in the game. I think people will remember that for a long time. They had a big-time director. You got a big star celebrity to be in the ad. You feature the product. There's a really good message. Here's the tough thing. They're paying $8 million for 30 seconds, and that was a 2-minute spot. So that ad went on for a long time, and Jeep paid a lot of money, and then it aired at a time that was late in the game when the audience was dropping off. So I kind of feel bad for Stellantis putting up, the Jeep ad, making great commercials. Maybe we'll see it again in the future. Maybe they'll edit it down to 30 seconds.
Well, and while we're doing personal picks, one that I enjoyed that didn't get quite the accredited score from the group here from Michigan State was the Uber Eats ad starring Matthew McConaughey. I thought the writing on that was really creative, incorporating all the ways football has been imaging to us subliminally about food throughout time, and Matthew McConaughey kind of representing all the different eras. Why didn't that maybe factor as well for the group?
Well, it did. I mean, we rated that pretty high. I mean, it was in the top 20. I think it was number 16. The thing is, if you're in the top 20, you've scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl because these are the best ads in the advertising industry every year. And that Matthew McConaughey ad with Kevin Bacon, right? It was funny. It was cute. And he does his sing-song, poetic kind of message. I don't know. I thought it was a great ad. Last year, Uber Eats had the best ad according to our ratings. And it wasn't anything wrong with this ad. It was just that there was so much good competition.
Let me ask you this. We talked about the modest amount of money to buy an ad, $8 million for 30 seconds. Is there like a sliding rate card where, in theory, if it's a great game, right, everybody's dialed into it, do you pay more or less for where you're placed?
Yes, you do pay more or less for where you're placed. But it is a gamble, too, Will, because it's sort of like the lottery. If you want that final 2-minute break, we're going to be back for the conclusion of our game in just a moment. And it's a great game. It's coming down to the wire. That final 2-minute break is like winning the lottery jackpot. Everybody's watching. They're excited. But not this game. The people were kind of tuned out. And the advertisers invested a lot of money in that final 2-minute break. So do they get a refund? No, they don't. It's kind of the roll of the dice that you take when you invest in advertising this in the big league Super Bowl.
Well, it's fascinating when you kind of break it down that way. And Robert, I kind of want to go over this again. We talked about it last year, but when you start talking about the price tag, as you mentioned a little bit ago, that it was $8 million for 30 seconds for some companies in some spots, the amount of return, this is an investment worth making for these businesses. It seems crazy when you throw out $8 million, but I was curious if you could walk us through the math of why this is so beneficial for these companies.
Well, so there's real research that shows that sales turn around for a product that gets exposed to the Super Bowl. I mean, the companies wouldn't do it if they didn't see a real rate of return on investment. In fact, usually for a car ad, you'd think a car ad, there would be someone would think about it maybe for a year or something. It's not like a pop or a beer or chips. You go out and you pick up that brand the next day. So you see Chrysler did a Made in Detroit M&M ad years ago, and driving through the city, it was really tough, ended at Fox Theater, M&M singing. Well, the CEO of Chrysler said, I couldn't believe that ad generated an unexpected $400 million in sales in the quarter. He said, he was Italian. He said, well, if I would have known it would have paid off that much, I would have featured a better car. So I don't know. Does it work? Yes, it works. 20, 30 years ago, advertisers were paying $100,000 for a nationwide ad. $8 million, yeah, that's a lot of money. You make a lot of decisions about an $8 million ad.
Where did this thing take off? I mean, you talk about money well spent, the viewership, and all of these things we've been discussing. But at some point, what triggered this to become the major holiday it is?
I think it was triggered when football agreed to let this be an event and a show. And they spiced up the halftime show. They started a 6-hour pregame show. They had a big post-game afterward presentation. And, it wasn't football anymore. It was a show. And so when football was able to, kind of give up that creative control of the reins, advertisers said, okay, let's really get into this. Now, I will tell you that in the history of television, the last 30 highest rated programs, 29 of them have been Super Bowls. And so people across all demographics, old, young, men, women, they're all watching. It's a holiday. People have suggested the day after the Super Bowl should be a holiday. Well, look at it. It has changed. It has evolved. It's a uniquely American tradition.
Well, as long as some eyebrows don't go flying by my car, I'm good.
Well, take care. We're neighbors, Will, so be careful. I'll be looking for you driving down, ducking from those eyebrows.
I got you, Robert. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, fellas.
A fun chat, as always, with Robert Kolt. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, we're going to talk to the guy that can really understand the new Big Ten. It's all coming up in just a moment.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little. But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
So I graduated last year and got a job. Sweet! But it got boring. I didn't really have a purpose. Then I started volunteering with Community Action. It's a statewide network with 29 agencies across Michigan. Community Action helps people with food, housing, utilities, childcare, senior services, you name it. I found my purpose, helping people, changing lives. Won't you join me? Call 1-855-MI-ACTION or go to MichiganCommunityAction.org. Sponsored by Michigan Community Action and Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just...
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
And welcome back for more of The Sports Life. We'll team in here along with Dalton Shetler. And don't forget, Auto Owners Insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you. Well, in August of 2024, UCLA, Southern Cal, Washington, and Oregon became official new members of the Big Ten Conference. Well, of that group, if there's one person that really understood the landscape of the Big Ten, it was the current athletic director at UCLA, Martin Jarmond. You see, Martin for 7 years was an associate director at MSU, and then for 8 years he was a deputy director at Ohio State before going on to Boston College and then on to UCLA as a director in 2020. So we had a chance to catch up with Martin on the phone, and he's a hard guy to catch up with. And one of the things we asked him as we passed the halfway point in the basketball season, how has the merger gone for UCLA and the other three West Coast schools?
Well, first of all, Will, it's always a pleasure to be with you. I always appreciate how you treated me and helped me when I was at Michigan State with you. So I appreciate you, and it's a pleasure to be with you. It's been great. The transition has been great. We officially joined August 2nd. We won our first Big Ten championship with women's soccer. We won a national championship in the fall with men's water polo, which is not a Big Ten sport yet. We'd love it to be. We've had some success in a lot of our teams so far. So it's been great. The travel is something we knew going in we'd have to adjust to. And some of our sports had to. We had some travel things leaving LAX for O'Hare that a couple times, maybe a delay here or there, that we now know that men's soccer had two trips, for example, and one of them was to Northwestern and they got delayed. And so now they're going to go out a day before, a day earlier than what they were going before. So, we've learned some things too, but overall, it's been great. The Big Ten has been great. And, I can't speak for our West Coast brethren, the other three schools, but for UCLA, it's been awesome.
So, it's interesting, Martin, you mentioned the travel. Do you feel at the end of the day, the West Coast members are going to have to travel more than, say, the traditional Big Ten guys?
Well, I don't know. I mean, most likely, I know the deal was that most of the other schools would come out west once, and we have to go out a few times. So probably so. But I don't really want to focus on the travel. You're going to have travel whatever conference you're in. At the end of the day, you've got to take care of yourself, take care of your bodies, and prepare to compete at the highest level, and that's what we do. So, I don't think that anybody's keeping track of travel and seeing what it is, because it just doesn't matter as much as far as what we need to do and what we need to accomplish.
Everybody talks about money, Martin. With everybody joining and bringing the Big Ten to 18 members, has the additional revenue generated been enough to make this whole thing worth it?
Oh, I mean, Will, I think it's worth it. Without that, we still haven't seen the full impact of being in the Big Ten as far as the revenue. Obviously, you have to go through a whole year to see that on your bottom line. But just, we want to compete at the highest level. We won so many championships. And, the two things that we wanted to give our student athletes are championship experience, competing against the best, and give them an elite academic education. And that's what you get at UCLA. And so, there are many things outside of revenue that we wanted to be in the Big Ten. One is relevancy. As this college athletics landscape changes, I think you're going to find more schools that are fighting to be relevant in the new world order of college athletics and what it's going to look like. And that's the Big Ten and the SEC put you right there in the leadership position, pole position, so to speak. So I would tell you the revenue is important, obviously, because to have successful teams, you have to have resources to attract talent and develop talent. But at the end of the day, the most important thing to me is having relevance in this new day of college athletics and what it's going to turn into.
So, one thing we haven't talked about yet are the fans. Have they embraced the change?
I would say everybody has to a degree. There's some people that still miss the Pac-12, which you're going to. I mean, we were in the Pac-12 for a long time, so that's certainly understandable. But I think the more exciting games you see different matchups. I can tell you, just talking to some of our fans at basketball games, they like seeing Wisconsin come in here, and that was a 2-point game. Having Michigan State come in here, first place in the Big Ten, top 10 opponent, we're close to a sellout for this game. So I think the combination of seeing different opponents is a net positive. And also, too, it's the best. I mean, if you look at the Big Ten in basketball right now, women's basketball, we got the number 1 team in the country, number 3, number 7, I believe. I mean, you got 3 top 10 teams on the women's side, and the men's side, you've got at least 5 or 6 in the top 25. So again, we want elite competition because that's who we are at UCLA, and the Big Ten gives you that.
As a director of athletics, Martin, the water you're trying to navigate with so many uncertain things going on, and we don't know where some of this is going to land. How difficult is it?
Depends on the day, Will. Depends on the day. The thing that you have to remember, I just think from a leadership standpoint, you want to be consistent. I try to be consistent with our coaches, our staff, so they know what they're getting. And it's hard to be consistent when your world is changing so much. And change is not easy for everyone. It's uncomfortable at times. And you don't know, a lot of answers you don't have. And so when you're in that kind of environment, what you try to do is control what you can. You try to be consistent. You try to bring your best every day. We talk about being elite, energy, leadership, integrity, toughness, excellence. Try to have an elite mindset every day and control what we can, and go from there. But, it's no doubt about it, Will. It's a challenging time for a lot of people in athletics. I feel for our head coaches especially. Just the roster management now, NIL, transfer portal, all of that happened so rapidly, and it changed so much that, our head coaches have had to adjust and adapt tremendously. So, I wish our supporters and people outside of college athletics would have a better appreciation for how much change has impacted head coaches and what they have to do. And, it's a different world, but it's good. A lot of change happens and a lot of positives come from that. And I have no doubt in my mind, we're going to be better for it. We just got to get through this phase of rapid growth and change and come out on the other side.
If there's anybody that would know about the Big Ten when the West Coast kind of joined up, you'd be you with your background. So when we got going in this 18-team league, anything catch you by surprise?
Did anything catch me by surprise? Oh, that's interesting. Not necessarily. I mean, Will, I was in the Big Ten for 15 years, 7 at Michigan State and 8 years at Ohio State. So, I feel, me personally, I had a good feel for whether it was Champaign or whether it was Madison or East Lansing. I feel like I had a good pulse on that. But I think there were some learnings that we probably didn't think through, that you have to just go through it, for the first time. I'll give you an example, just the travel piece. And again, travel's been fine. It hasn't been a whole lot more than what we were used to before as far as our Olympic sports. Like I said, men's soccer, I think they got delayed one time out of LAX for 6 hours and they got to Chicago late. And so their next trip, instead of going a day before, you go 2 days before, So there are things you learn like that you just quite didn't anticipate. But it hasn't been much that has surprised me. I knew it was a competitive league. I knew you got to bring it every night, especially basketball. There's no nights off with anybody in the league, 18 deep.
So here we are. We're getting through that first go-around. So when all the ADs get together and you guys review what has happened, any tweaks that you think you might want to make moving forward into year 2?
Yeah, I think right now we're so focused on this house settlement and really trying to prepare for that to potentially go through. I hope it does go through. I think we need to get more of a structure in place to give us some consistency and some stability. But I think a lot of us are just really preparing for that house settlement. So I've been less focused on what changes need to be made in the Big Ten. We have obviously talked about some. After the seasons, like football, for example, we talk about what went right, what didn't go right, what do we need to look at, what do we need to put up for the rules committee, the NCAA, those kind of things. So you have a natural, hot wash after the season as far as kind of assessing where things stand and what needs to get better. But I think a lot of us are really just preparing for this new world. We're potentially going to share revenue with athletes for the first time in collegiate athletics history. And so that's a big deal, man. And so I think we're all, from a staffing perspective, from a cap management perspective, from a business perspective, you have to prepare the enterprise, the business, to be able to take on that and thrive in this new environment and have a more business approach to your decision making and how you go about doing what you need to do.
Well, Martin, as a final thought, anything you want to add I haven't asked you about?
No, I mean, you're a pro, Will. You've covered it all. I mean, I think we're excited about being in the Big Ten. Our fans are excited. We can't wait for the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis, both of them, for men's and women's basketball. And it'll be good to keep going back to the Midwest and compete at the highest level. But no, we're in a good place.
Well, I sure appreciate it. Thank you so much, Martin.
All right. We appreciate you. Thanks, Will.
As always, a good chat with UCLA Athletic Director Martin Jarmond. When we return, our parting shots in just a moment.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
So I graduated last year and got a job. Sweet! But it got boring. I didn't really have a purpose. Then I started volunteering with Community Action. It's a statewide network with 29 agencies across Michigan. Community Action helps people with food, housing, utilities, childcare, senior services, you name it. I found my purpose, helping people, changing lives. Won't you join me? Call 1-855-MI-ACTION or go to MichiganCommunityAction.org. Sponsored by Michigan Community Action and Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Anybody ready for a burger?
I'm State Fire Marshal Rich Miller, reminding everyone to think safety first when it comes to outdoor grilling, whether it's charcoal or gas. Never overload your grill with food. Excess fat and grease will create large flames. Grill outdoors and never inside or in a garage. Never leave a grill unattended and always keep a fire extinguisher nearby. For more tips on safe grilling, visit the Bureau of Fire Services website at michigan.gov/BFS.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit InsureKidsNow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Team here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, we've hit on some really good topics so far in this show, but nothing as good as the parting shots.
That's a good point. And by the way, if you missed any of this show, make sure you give us a follow at Sports Life Now on Twitter or X. That's again at Sports Life Now. We'll have everything posted there. But for my parting shot, I want to give a hat tip over at Michigan women's basketball. Their head coach, Kim Barnes-Arico, has really turned that program around in her decade plus of leading the Wolverines, so much so that she's not only the all-time winningest coach in that program's history, but now that school's history. She passed John Beilein as they defeated the Indiana Hoosiers earlier this week with 279 wins. And you know how good John Beilein was there at Michigan. Really goes to say something of what Kim Barnes-Arico has accomplished there at Michigan. It's a pretty neat honor.
Well, it's a very neat honor, actually. So my parting shot goes back to the Super Bowl. I'm always curious about how many people watch this thing. Well, according to Nielsen, 127.7 million, that's an all-time record. How many Big Ten people played in this game? Well, 12 played for the Chiefs, 9 for the Eagles. So there you go. And with that, that's a wrap for this week's show. And we should also note that you can find us wherever you find your podcasts, like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. As always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler. Our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So, on behalf of Dalton Shetler, I'm Will Tiemann, and thanks for your time.